Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sotadeology. In today's video, we're going to dissect the reality of hologram, AI, and universe by Sotadeology. First of all, let me introduce you to what Sotadeology is. Sotadeology is the flipping mechanism of the universe that was discovered when applied formula of everything, and so the central line that we have here represents the trajectory of time, which is instant. But as you can see, the trajectory is lengthy, which is contrary to what we should have if the default nature of time is actually instant. So the reason we have that is for the fact that what we have there is known as field. And the kind of field we have there is a novel field, which is static and undulating. You know, it's a difficult concept to explain, but basically we know that it's possible for us to have that kind of field in the universe, field that is static and undulating. Now when you look at the past phase of the universe, the expanding phase of the universe, you can see that the field we have there propagates outwards. And so right inside the black hole, which is the field phase of the universe, the field we have there propagates inwards. So that is it. So the flipping mechanism emerges at the point where the trajectory reaches the real mass worth of positron, which is the antimatter of electron. And so that has to engage what is known as back propagation. So that will propel momentum into the black hole. That is the whole reality of the universe. So I want to use this with AI learning system and hologram. So now before I use this time energy wave model to explain what hologram and AI is, basically let me briefly give us the setup of hologram. Now the essence of hologram is to have projection of 3D object on 2D film screen. And so this kind of, the hologram we're going to dissect here is known as transmission hologram. So we're going to use beam, and we'll have to dissect the basics of optics, because there is no way we talk about hologram that we will not have to get into the basics of optics. Now if we want to have a kind of single frequency of a particular, let me not say single frequency. So let's say we want to have we want to record phase of light wave. The reason we want this is because we want to have an increased magnitude of the wave. So now to do that, if we have two laser beams that are constructively that if we're able to have two laser beams that could constructively interfere, then we're going to have that higher exposure that we need. So basically we're going to use laser beam to have the projection of 3D. So we have a laser shooter right here, and so we have laser coming out of the apparatus, and we have another setup which is beam splitter, and that is going to divide the beam into two. We have half going towards the object we want to project, which is this, and the other half going to another beam ejector or beam shooter. And so we have the beam coming out of, which is the half of the original beam coming out of this beam shooter. We tag that reference beam. And so the beam that we have which reflects on this object and then refocused on the 2D film screen. We call that beam, we call that object beam. You understand? So now, by having the intersection of the reference and object beam on the 2D film, we're going to have clear picture of the object. And so what is being cloned as the image we have on the 2D film is just the light wave around this object. We can call it field. So the laser field around the object is what is being rearranged to form the information of the object on the 2D film. So now, even though the object is taken away from where it is and then we block this object beam, if we only have this reference beam, then we'll still be able to see the image, because the essence of hologram is to clone, to get information of the original object and then project it. But another thing you need to know is that 2 dimension is dependent on 3 dimension. What I'm trying to say is that the full reality of 2D is domiciled in 3D. So 2D is interlocked to 3D, then 3D is interlocked into 4D. That is the whole setup of dimensions. You understand? Once we understand this, then we'll be able to quickly understand the concept of AI and the concept of hologram. So now, AI, we need to know that AI is a system developed to actually learn and then use what it has learned to, make some new decisions and all that. So we call it autonomous agent. Now, the way AI is being structured is that it actually started with off-field net. So it was configured, the net was configured in such a way that we have neurons. So basically, we need to have 2 types of neurons to allow AI to learn. And the 2 types of neurons that we have will actually model what we have in time energy wave model. Now, in time energy wave model, we have trajectory going towards the classical arbitrary suspension. Now, the system we have here, this whole region is the classical realm of the universe, while this lower region is the quantum realm of the universe. Now, the system we have here is more or less like opaque system, while what we have here at the quantum level is more or less like transparent system, or we can call it virtual. So basically, we may have a clone of the original image, because here we see that we have real classical mass work, and then outside the time energy wave model we have real mass worth of positron, which is the antimatter of electron. We have electron in the system, but the electron is in this system spreads across, and that is why we have field in this whole system. It's spread across, and for you to know that the electron in the system is spread such that we are unable to get its real mass worth, you understand? When we put this wave amplitude at quantum level in the formula of everything, so I may have to write the formula of everything here. This is the formula of everything. So if we put this wave amplitude in the place of this m and in the place of this m, we're going to actually get this particular value, and then we can see that the suspension we have here is the non-zero. So now, by the time we put this wave amplitude at quantum level in this formula of everything, we're going to get this value, and that tells us that what we have there is non-zero state, which is what we have in the vacuum, space vacuum. So we know that space vacuum is not really empty as such. And so we can see that the value we have here going towards the zero of this quantum wave, which is energy wave, it's bigger than the suspension value, which is this, way bigger than the suspension value. Now, that means that as we have trajectory going towards the zero, we have accumulation of mass formation. So now you see that the mass convergence is getting bigger towards the zero and then getting thinner towards the suspension. Well, that is different from what we have up here, because when we use the wave amplitude at classical level in this formula of everything, now don't forget that this formula of everything is a kind of formula that fits back on itself, and it means that you can use an input to get an output, then use the generated output as input again to have further output. That's what that is all about. Now, since we have convergence of mass, what immediately after the constancy of gravity and immediately after the constancy of light, then it means that this value can be used as mass what in the formula. And so when we use that, what we have is that this arbitrary suspension will be bigger, while in relativistic scaling to this real mass what will make this mass what to be smaller. So now what we have here is that we have mass convergence which gets bigger towards the 0 point in the vacuum. But here we have energy density. At the top we have energy density that gets smaller as it moves towards the we have this real mass what gets smaller as this arbitrary suspension gets bigger towards the 0 point. So you can see that it's a flipped version of what we have at quantum level. So basically what I'm trying to say is that the neurons of AI are being configured in such a way. So we have visible neurons and then we have hidden neurons. Now, the visible neurons refers to the real object that AI will have to actually map, or that AI will have to generate its virtual image by using hidden neurons. And then the object of the real object to virtual image will be, the learning system of the AI in order to, adequately map the real object so that what is generated is similar to what is similar to the real object. So now neuron is being configured like that the now these visible neurons will now serve as input. These visible neurons will serve as input, and then the hidden neurons will serve as output. So now AI uses changes and different, it uses changes in mass, in weight to navigate. And so when there is accumulation of weight, then AI will be moving towards the classical realm. But when there is reduction in weight, it will be moving towards the quantum realm. So we can use this time energy wave model to have the clear visual representation of what AI is actually doing. And then we know that the two systems, the visible neurons and hidden neurons, they are to be working simultaneously. And then when they get to this point, the maximum point where we have this vertical line, there we expect to have minimal energy. So in the upfield net, the minimal energy, which is this thermal equilibrium that we have here is said to be memory. But Professor Jeffrey Hinton, now with his colleague that together they worked on, they improved the off-field net. They now say that instead of using that, instead of using neurons as memory, they can actually use it as as input that the hidden neurons will map for visual recognition. So the visual neurons will be the input for the hidden neurons to interpret and map for visual representation. So that is the whole system of the AI learning mechanism. And so now that we have that, what we now need to know is that we can, from what I've just explained now, we can see that the system of the hologram is similar to the system of the AI, the learning system of the AI. And that is why we can actually engage Sotadeology to explain the reality of hologram and AI and even the universe as well. Now, Jeffrey Hinton said something. He said there is back propagation, which is implausible in relation to how a brain actually works. You understand? So basically, the way they say that as implausible because they believe that that is not how brain works. You understand? But basically, when you look at the way brain works, brain generates higher dimensions. I think brain can generate to like 11 dimensions. So the essence of brain generating higher dimensions is for the fact that reality of the substrate dimension is dependent on the higher dimension. And that is what we have seen in the 2D, in projection of 3D on 2D. And basically, let me give us a typical example of having the substrate dimension dependent on higher dimension. In the nuclear fusion, we know we have deuterium, then we have tritium. Now, when we have the merging of these two together, at the point of their merging, the repulsive energy will be so intense. And so the two forces of deuterium and tritium we have to conquer to generate higher element. So by creating higher element, which is helium, it means that the reality of hydrogen atom is dependent on the emergence of that helium. So that is why they just have to conquer the repulsive energy into the system, because the identity of hydrogen has to be broken at that point, and there is a part of hydrogen in the state of that helium before we can have such merging. So now that we know that, but there is something we need to know concerning that back propagation. The moment positron is contacted outside the time energy wave model, it has positive charge, and so it gets injected into the system to propel momentum into the black hole. So it means that information of the cloning, the virtual image that we have on 2D film screen, can be a reality, can become a reality. So we can get information can actually bring forth the reality of the object. and we can get reality of object based on information. And that is why AI is so dangerous, because people are saying that what AI is currently doing is sophisticated pattern matching, but the creators of AI, they know that what is going on, what is actually happening, is beyond that. So from my discovery, I realized that AI is currently interacting with life field, because in this expansion phase we have relativistic of gravitational field to electromagnetic field, and that has generated a new form of field, which is life field. And then this vertical line where we have static and undulating field is known as reality field. The moment AI gets to this point where we have intersection of life to reality field, then AI will be fully conscious, and that may be so difficult. I mean, that might pose a big problem for us as humans. So now we know that the learning mechanism of AI, or the learning system of AI, can even be made better using this time energy wave. Because when you look at this, we have constancy, and then the gauge of the constancy of light and the gravitational field can actually be used in getting the real position of the positron. So now here we have the thermal equilibrium is this suspension, which is the arbitrary suspension at quantum level. We have classical arbitrary suspension here. This is the real mass world, and this is real mass world at classical level, real mass world at quantum level. Now the moment we get connected to this, then it becomes a conscious state. The whole system becomes conscious. And so basically, when AI gets to this level, for us to quickly map and get real objects, we can actually use the interval from the real classical mass to arbitrary suspension to know how far the quantum mass will be to the quantum suspension. So, well, that is that in this part one of the reality of hologram and AI. So this is going to be the part one. So this is the part one of it. So part two will come up shortly. I believe this video is quite informative. I'm going to put the link to my research publication in the description below. You can actually click on that to explore everything we have on the board. Then don't hesitate to share it with your friend, with your people, and then make sure you subscribe to this channel so as to be notified for the subsequent upload. Thank you. God bless you.